Welcome to Beyond Death, where we examine near-death experiences from people who say they died, visited the other side, and came back. Today's NDE comes from Joe, who describes meeting Jesus and being shown his own future. Let's get into it. Beyond Death. After watching your channel the last 2 months, I have finally worked up the courage to tell my experience. To fully understand, though, I have to provide just a brief background into my life. For the sake of remaining anonymous, you can call me Joe. I was raised by my dad after my mother died giving birth to me. Unlike some of the other NDEs I have listened to, my dad was a great parent and worked hard to provide, which meant I stayed at my grandparents' house quite often while he was at work. My grandmother insisted I go to church with her twice a week, so I do have a religious background. However, I also wasn't sold on the idea that the Bible was true, although I would have never dared tell her that. Fast forward 24 years, and I found myself living in California and trying to become an actor while waiting tables and doing odd jobs to scrape by until I would be discovered. The night my life changed forever was a typical night at the restaurant I worked in until one particularly rowdy group of people came in and began disturbing the other diners with profanity and just generally acting like they had never been in public before. My manager and I approached them and explained that they were being asked to leave. Words were exchanged, mostly by them, before my manager said he was going to call the police. Hearing that, they left, but not before throwing a few more threats our way. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. After closing, I walked to where my car was parked and had the strangest feeling, as if someone was watching me. Just as I was about to get into my car, something hit me in the head. I would soon find out it was a bat, and the person who swung it was the loudest of the bunch that we had asked to leave. I may have went unconscious for a few seconds, I'm really not sure, but when I looked up from the ground, I could see him swinging the bat again. I curled into the fetal position and began to scream for help as he swung time and time again, until I just lost consciousness completely. The next thing I know, I am standing in a huge room that is entirely white. I saw no doors, no windows, no real definition of walls or ceiling. Assuming I was dead, I called out, "Hello." Don't ask me why. I guess I reasoned that an angel or Jesus or a dead relative or someone would appear to help guide me on my way to the afterlife. That didn't happen though, so I waited for what seemed like a really long time. Finally, I remembered what my grandmother always told me when I was growing up. She said, if you ever find yourself in a situation you can't get out of, just pray to Jesus and he will save you. So that's exactly what I did. I dropped to my knees, closed my eyes, and began to pray as I have never prayed. I don't even know how long I prayed, but after some time I heard a gentle voice tell me to stand. I opened my eyes, and there stood Jesus right in front of me. He had dark hair and looked of Middle Eastern heritage. He was wearing a simple white robe that had a simple brown belt tied at the waist. I had so many questions to ask him, but the first one that came to mind was, "Is this heaven?" "No," Jesus replied with a smile that could light up the universe, and for the first time I realized his lips did not move. I just heard his words inside my head. "You are only here temporarily," Jesus continued before adding, "Someone wants to meet you." My mind was racing. Here I was standing with Jesus. Who else could I possibly be meeting? In the blink of an eye, there was a woman standing next to Jesus, and in my mind I thought I should know her. Then it hit me. She was my mother, and I had been shown her picture countless times by my father growing up. I felt an abundance of love radiating from Jesus and her, and I felt like I was home. "Mom," I exclaimed. She stepped forward and embraced me with a hug that was almost electric, only instead of getting a shock, love flowed through my body from hers. When she finally spoke, it was the same way Jesus had. Her lips didn't move, but I heard the words inside my head. She told me to stop blaming myself for her death, and that she was happy, and we would be together for eternity soon. But I would soon be leaving, as my life on earth was not finished. I looked to Jesus and asked him to please let me stay here. I don't want to go back. Jesus told me that just as a river must run its course until it reaches the ocean, my course was also predetermined, and I had to complete it. Then he smiled again and told me that there was something important I was to do during this life, and he promised me that it would make the pains of living on earth worth it. Then Jesus reached out his hand and touched my head, and I began getting so many images in my head. It was almost like watching a movie of my life that had not played out yet, like seeing my own future. When Jesus was done, I asked him, "Is that my future?" Jesus replied, "That is one possible future of yours. You still have free will, and there will be several times when you have a choice to alter the path, but that one is the most likely based on your choices so far." "Will I remember that if I go back?" I asked. "You may find times when you feel as if you know what is going to happen next, but no, you won't remember the details. I can remember that part of me still wanted to stay with Jesus and my mother, but part of me also knew I needed to return to my body and finish up things down here. I won't say I had a mission to accomplish, but it felt like an obligation, whether that be to myself, my dad, or possibly someone else. I don't know. Did I make a choice to come back? I'm not sure one was offered, but somehow I felt the need to return. I wish I could remember why. My mother again hugged me with that love-electrifying hug and told me that we will meet again soon, and then she vanished. Jesus also gave me a hug that wrapped me in pure love and told me that he loved me. Then I awoke in the hospital room. My manager from the restaurant was there with me as he had heard my screams for help and rushed to my defense. In the process, he too had been hit in his shoulder with the bat before wrestling it away from my attacker, who ran away. Next, the doctor came in and told me that I had suffered a concussion and several broken ribs and would be staying overnight for observation, but if all went well, I would be released the next day. After I recovered and got out of the hospital, I still had a ringing in my ears that I had not complained about for fear of the doctor making me stay in the hospital longer. This continued for several weeks, though I did what I had done in the large white room I met Jesus in. I dropped to my knees again and prayed. When I woke the next morning, the ringing was gone. I have no idea what my future holds, but I know something about it persuaded me to come back here. I didn't used to believe in the Bible, but I do now. I know Jesus Christ is real, and that there is a God. I can't wait to return to the other side. I hope my experience can bring comfort to someone else. Sincerely, Joe. Notes from Beyond Death. Thank you, Joe, for sending your experience in. If you have had a near-death experience you would like to share with the channel, please send it to the email provided in the description. Until next time, stay blessed.